Thank you for joining us for Sermons on Demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. We provide these videos as a way to share the pulpit messages and teachings offered at Friendship Grace Brethren Church. If you find these videos a helpful resource, please drop us a note at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com. Now open your Bibles and get ready to dig into the Word of God. If you spend much time watching apologists, you will have heard these terms before. I priori and I posteriori. I never can say this one. Posteriori. One means I priori means before the data, and a or I posteriori means after the data. Have you ever talked to people that and you want to talk to them about something and they say, well, I don't believe that. Well, I haven't even told you yet my evidence. Well, I don't believe that. Thank you. That's before the evidence. Exactly. You can't say it either. Yeah, that's the way. That's how I remember which is which, because posterior, that comes after you. Yeah, exactly. But it's still after, right? In order to follow, you have to be after.
Would you spell
capital A, space, capital P, Osterii. And so Gary's going to talk about primarily this, but he goes into a lot of other things and how we can overcome some of those objections. Feel free to stop, to wave your hand at any time so we can stop and figure out what's going on. Yeah, just not at me, because I'm going to throw them back. And Chuck was present with me when we saw the greatest of all spitball guns. I've resisted getting one, but I might if you start throwing things at me.
Okay, I'm going to start out just our second lecture here with a bang. I want to get into this thing running. And let me introduce the topic. When you talk about resurrection, I think probably the most common thing people know about resurrection is that critics are going to come up with some objections. And they're going to say, maybe disciples stole the body, maybe somebody else stole the body, maybe he never died on the cross, maybe there's hallucinations, maybe it's a legend, he copied off Isis and Osiris and other pre-Christian myths. And okay, those objections I just gave are a posteriori objections. A posteriori means after the data. They come up later in this course. It sort of goes like this. All right, I've heard your spiel. I've got some questions for you. How do you know he died? How do you know they didn't see hallucinations? They hear your data and they formulate their objections to your data, and we should be able to answer them. But how many lectures have you heard on the topic of a priori objections to the resurrection? Now, sometimes Christians say a priori objections are just wrong. You shouldn't even be doing them, because a priori objections mean you're running your mouth before you even hear the data. You're just off and running. You haven't even heard what we're talking about. All right, so let's try to solve this. What a priori before the data? What questions are legit a priori and what questions are not legit? The not legit kind are the kind that reject the resurrection before you even hear the data. That's not fair, right? That's like you walk into a doctor's office and the doctor says, don't tell me, flu. You know, the judge, dude, you look really guilty, get him out of here. You know, we wouldn't be thankful for that kind of an approach because it's a pre-data judgment.
When I started as a cop in Indiana, we still had justices of the peace. And each little town had a justice of the peace. And our justice of the peace in Milford was an old drunk. I think I can say that. And he would hold court on his back porch. And when we would arrest somebody, say for DUI or something, we would have to bring the bad guy to his court in his back porch. And he had a long driveway, and you drive up the driveway and you get out. He had a buzzer on the side of the house that you would ring, and then you'd walk around to the back side of the porch. And he would come out in his robe, and often it was his bathrobe instead of his judicial robe. And he would ask what the charges are, DUI or whatever, and he would say, guilty. Cop wouldn't have brought you if you weren't guilty. Okay, let's go. So that hits home with me.
But then what kind of objections could be pre-data and could be worthwhile? And I would make this distinction. There's a difference between an a priori rejection and an a priori objection. Now let me define a priori objections. These are before the data. And they're usually philosophical, some of them are historical, and the critic is saying something like this: look, before you get started, I've got an objection, and it might save us both a lot of time, because I've got several questions which, if you or somebody else can't answer them, we don't even need to look at the data, because I'm telling you, the data are not going to help you out of this one. If my objection is correct, your data are irrelevant. So I'm going to cut you off at the pass. I'm not saying you're wrong. That would be an a priori rejection. But I'm giving you an a priori objection. I'm simply saying, think about this before you explain your data. Now, how many of those kind of objections are they? Well, post data, a posteriori, there are generally classically, there are a half dozen major responses to the resurrection. There's all kinds of little ones. But the big ones are, the disciples stole the body, someone other than the disciples stole the body, Jesus didn't die on the cross, I saw hallucinations, and Christians copied off early myths. But there's actually many more a priori objections. In fact, in a set of notes that I use with PhD students, the lecture students material, I have 17 or 18 a priori objections. Now, I'm not going to be able to work through those here, but what I'm going to do is divide the dozen and a half a priori objections, not rejections, but objections, into three categories. And I want to deal with each of those three categories, okay? The first category is an evidence category. And you know, this is probably the one that the critics raise most frequently. And it goes like this. You know, you all don't have any evidence at all. Excuse me, what are you going to do? Quote verses to me out of the Bible? Excuse me, I don't believe in the Bible, so try something else, okay? Where's your evidence? And don't quote the Bible to me. Where's your evidence coming from? So almost everybody is asking about evidence, and about 7 of these dozen and a half are in this show me the evidence before we start talking. I want to know if it's even worth my time to dialogue with you, the skeptic says. Because I understand where you guys are coming from. You guys preach to each other. You guys are kind of gullible. You believe something because a verse says that. But of course, you won't let the Muslims do that, and you won't let the Hindus do that, and you won't let the Jews do that, but you expect me to let you do that. Sorry, ain't going on here. So what kind of evidence do you have? And when you start saying, no, I'm sorry, I've got some good evidence, then they might start pressing it. They'll say, what kind of evidence? Is it to be compared to scientific evidence? Because you know, science trumps history, because science is a more respected kind of evidence. Science is the head of the learning apex in the West. And do you have some scientific data for the resurrection of Jesus? So they start tightening down the screws after you say, well, I've got some evidence. Yeah, well, don't quote the Bible to me. No, I'm not going to. Well, what kind of evidence do you have? Science? Because if it's something else, if it's one of the soft sciences instead of the hard sciences, I'm trained in science, I really don't want to talk to you. So the first category is going to ask about evidence. The second category is going to ask about the laws of nature. Now, let's just say that you've said enough intriguing things to the skeptic that they think you should be listened to. All right, I'll stick around a little longer. You've answered some initial evidence questions for me, but now I have a second set of questions for you. Even if you evidence that something strange happened with regard to the resurrection of Jesus, why shouldn't I just change the laws of nature, just tweak them a little bit, and let the resurrection fall between the cracks? Why can't, for example, Craig Keener's new 2-volume, 1,100-page work on present-day miracles, many of which are confirmed with pre- and post-MRI, CAT scan, X-ray data? Okay, all right. There's got to be some good ones in 1,100 cases. What if I just say, in this day and age, spontaneous healings take place sometimes, and it happens to unbelievers as well as believers. It doesn't require there to be a God. That's the second category of objection. So you've got something going for you. Why would I think your whole worldview is validated from this? What if I just tweak it and say, good point. Here's what you taught me today. The world is a little bit more complicated than I thought previously, but Christianity is surely false. But, I'll let that, it'll fit in between these laws. The third category of objection is the toughest. And thankfully for the average Christian, most critics don't know about this third category. It's largely the philosophers, and the objections are epistemic in nature. They're how do you know questions. Now, to get these kind across, let me use an illustration. When I was a little boy, many years ago, when we would go to school, my mother, she was 18 when she got married, 19, I was the oldest when I was born, and she just wanted to be the consummate mother, she just wanted to be excellent. So when they advertised on TV that everybody needs to buy these little tiny labels with your child's name and the label, and we'll send you 500 of them and sew them into everything they own. Sew them into their shirt collar, sew them into their jacket collar, and then when your child leaves their coat out of the playground, someone will pick it up and say, oh, it's Joe Clark, and Joe will get his coat back. So my mom ordered these things, and she sewed our names in almost everything we owned. All right, here's the problem with miracles. Miracles don't come with ID tags. They don't come with raised by God, healed by God, signed Jehovah, right? There's no labels inside our coats that say God did this. So it's an epistemic thing. Even if I were to say you've got past my evidence objection and you've got past my expand the laws of nature, this world is more complicated than I previously thought. If you get past my first two roadblocks, just remember what a miracle is. This is the critic talking. Just remember what a miracle is. A miracle is something which by definition was caused by God. I'll use David Hume's famous skeptical definition. An event brought about by God or an invisible agent. In other words, an angel did it. A demon did it. An invisible agent did it. My third objection is, all right, so you've got a collection of weird things here. But you surely want to argue, do you not, that God's the author of these things? But there's no created by God in the collar. So what you've got is weird things. Why in the world would I jump from weird things to your holy book is true? Why in the world would I jump from, wow, yeah, I could see that in a CAT scan too, to all of a sudden there's meaning in the universe and I should get down on my knees and praise the God who I don't think exists. So those are three categories of a priori, not rejections, because that would be illegitimate to reject something before you look at it. But a priori objections. Do you have enough evidence? Can I subsume it by looking at, by expanding the laws? And what do I do when I can't get this thing back to God? Because if I miss the bridge, if I miss the bridge from God to the event, it's not valuable for you in your system. All you have is a weird event. Weird events are a dime a dozen. You've got to prove there's a bridge. You've got to prove it comes from God's hand. It'd be neat if you had a little name in the collar. You don't bother him anymore. How do you know God did it? All right. Now, these are a priori objections, so I'm going to respond in an a priori manner. All right? I'm not going to play their game any differently than what they've demanded. They've said, I want to know that you can put up or shut up. And here's my response. First category. You guys have enough evidence? Yes, I do. Let me hear some of it. Not in your life. Not now. This is an a priori objection on your part. You're saying, I don't have enough evidence. I say I do. If you want to go to court with it, so to speak, if you want to have a debate, then we'll see the evidence and who responds to it. But I don't have to show my hand at this point because it's a priori. It's before the data. He might want me to spill the beans, but I'm not playing that game right now. I'm just going to say, I've got the data. And he might say, well, do you mind letting me in on something? Why should I believe you? And you could say, well, I'm the guy that did the head count of scholars out there. And we already mentioned this in the earlier lecture. More scholars today, vis-a-vis Raymond Brown's synopsis of where New Testament Christology is today, where scholars are. It looks like, extending that to the resurrection as we did, it looks like more people believe that something happened to Jesus than those who believe that nothing happened to Jesus today. The data are good enough to make people stand up and take notice. Something's happened. Or to use the examples I used, when I'm in grad school, you believe in the empty tomb, you're an evangelical, because only evangelicals believe in the empty tomb. Today, the earliest I can tell, about 67 to 75%, about 2/3 to 3/4 of scholars believe in the empty tomb. What's happened? 23 arguments have happened, to use the example I gave you earlier. 23 arguments that I'm aware of for the history of the empty tomb. Something's moved it to the right. Now, I'm not telling you what those 23 are, because you're challenging me in an a priori manner, so I'm answering you in an a priori manner. I'm saying I've got the goods. You know, guys would solve this, you know, on the football field. They would solve it. There's ways to solve these things. You think you got it? Let's dispute this. But I'm not spilling everything right now. You're simply saying you don't have evidence, and I'm saying, excuse me, I do. Okay, all right. Let me just say, I've seen some of your stuff. Let's just say you've got some intriguing stuff. How do I know, objection, second category, how do I know that this just isn't a little more complicated world than I previously thought? What if I expand the laws of nature and let miracles fall in between the cracks? Which, by the way, I want to remind you, I'm saying miracles. I'm using that word very loosely because in order to be a miracle, it's got to come from God's hand. I don't have any reason to believe this came from God's hand, so I'm humoring you a little bit. But how do I know that these events don't fall between the cracks? I mean, you know, Middle Ages, first time we see an eclipse, we go, oh no, judgment. Probably, you know, I just thought about this. Maybe eclipses in the Middle Ages were the quickest thing in turning people toward dispensationalism. No, just a joke. You know, if you see things, you might be inclined to change your eschatology right in the moment because, you know, and then, oh, it's over. And remember what Peter says? People question when the Lord's returning and they go right back to doing what they were doing before and nothing's changed. How do I know it's a miracle? All right. I think that they've got a point about general miracle claims. I think they've got a point about general miracle claims. But this second categorical objection will not work with the resurrection of Jesus. It may work with other events, like, let's use one. The only miracle that's recorded in all four Gospels, not counting the resurrection, is what? Only miracle recorded in all four Gospels, not counting the resurrection. It's the feeding of the 5,000. And there's also another feeding of the 4,000. And it's often said in the philosophical literature, if certain things keep happening over and over again, feeding 5,000, feeding 4,000, maybe that falls between the cracks. All right, I didn't think loaves and fish could multiply, but I'll make a new rule. I mean, if there's a Sasquatch and there's a Loch Ness Monster and there's a mermaid and maybe loaves and fish multiply. I don't know, but Christianity doesn't follow from that. All right, let's see if this will
said the only miracle that's recorded in all four Gospels.
In all four, okay.
Right.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
In all four of the Gospels.
Right. Each one records that, the feeding of the 5,000. All the other miracles are only in 2 or 3. A couple miracles only in 1.
Work with resurrection. How would you expand the laws of nature? Fish and bread, just plain multiply. Let's see if we can do that with Jesus' resurrection. Where would you go with the resurrection? Are there resurrections in other religions? Now, I'm not talking about Elijah, Elisha, Lazarus, Tabitha, or even if you want to use a non-Christian case, or if you want to use some of the cases on YouTube today, some real interesting ones. Because in every one of those cases, the person comes back to die again. So that's not quite as radical as the resurrection of Jesus, even if one of those or more are true. But how would you make a rule that allows for the resurrection of Jesus to be subsumed? You know, eclipses happen when the following astronomical conditions occur. Now I've expanded the laws of nature and I have a rule, and whoops, that's just another eclipse again. Oh, here comes it. Now I start predicting it. There's going to be an eclipse next Thursday because we know the rules. But does that work with resurrection? I don't mean the resurrections where people die. Again, there's only one person in this category of a resurrection where you don't die again. Now, somebody could jump up and go, excuse me, but you're prejudiced. You're saying that because you're a Christian. And that's why you think that. And I'd say, well, I mean, the floor is yours. Do you have another example? This is just an aside, but I'll put this in, for free. This is an end note. Jesus is the only founder of a major world religion who ever claimed to be God. And Jesus is the only founder of a major world religion who's believed to have been raised from the dead. In such a way as to not have to die again. But the rest of them, I mean, not even the other kind. So are you going to make a change in a rule? Are you going to make a change for one person? Maybe loaves and fish multiply. I mean, it happened at least twice, right? Feeding the 5,000, feeding the 4,000. It happened at least twice. But what about resurrection? What would that rule look like? Now, here it is on eclipse. Whenever the atmosphere's bodies are such that the sun passes in front of the, and you got eclipse of the moon, sun, and one's coming next Thursday. And that shows you I have control of things because I can tell you when it's happening next. I got this one down. We've adjusted the rules of nature. Let's do that with Jesus. What would it look like for the resurrection? Dead men stay dead unless your name is Jesus Christ. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this again. It's appointed unto men once to die, and after that the judgment, unless you're the Son of God. No, that doesn't work. Can you think of a way out so that they can get Jesus' resurrection in sideways? I will grant that they can expand the laws of nature and let certain healing. There's another one, healing miracles. You say, well, healing miracles are pretty common. My doctor does it all the time when he gives me antibiotics. Okay, fair point. But let's go back to Jesus. How do you get a resurrection in there? There's no way to change those laws that I can see to get resurrection in there. So number one, he says, you don't have enough evidence. I say, I do. Now, I'll just let you think about this one. The guy might say, scientific evidence? Really? Scientific evidence? And you know what I'd say? Yes, we do. Now, let's move on. It's a priori. I don't have to show my hand. We have scientific evidence. All right. I want to see this. Good. But what if I change the laws? Go ahead. Change the laws. Be my guest. Dead men don't rise except for Jesus. You know what? That's the New Testament message. The New Testament is, it's appointed unto men once to die, and after that the judgment, unless your name's Jesus. That is the New Testament message. You haven't made a law that nails Christians. You're just saying what the New Testament says. So now what do you say? Yeah, well, there's no labels inside their coats. And now that is the tough one. How do I show that Jesus' resurrection was done by the hand of God? How do I build a bridge between the God of the universe and this event over here and this one who was raised? Now, I'm not going to answer this one today. I do want to take another lecture and spend some time on a few of these, because you might get these objections. And I want to show you what a few of these look like in part 2 of this lecture. But I'm not going to solve this, because we're going to spend a good part of the rest of the course on this. I want to just remember this. I want to ask later, what would a label look like in the necks of our coats that say, this event happened by the hand of God? It's something for you to think about. I think it's an extremely challenging question. What is there built into the resurrection that says, see, my coat says, made in China. My coat says, this car was made in the USA. What does the label inside the resurrection coat say? Is there some way to link resurrection to the hand of God? Is there some way to say, I think God's behind this? And I think there are several. Okay, so all we've done is jump in on these critiques here, and I've said they challenge the evidence, and I'm telling you, we've got more evidence than most Christians know about. We've got more evidence than we need. We've got way more evidence than we need. If they want to play evidence games, they're talking to the wrong people. Because Christianity is the only religion in the world that does what we call apologetics the way we do it. You should think about this. When other religions do apologetics, here's how other religions do apologetics. What's your view again? Jesus, Son of God? You're a loser. Jesus is raised? You're wrong. Miracles happened? You stink. I mean, what they do is they hear your objections and then they go after you. Do you know religions that say, here's 10 evidences that my religion is true? There's almost like nothing like that out there. But we do that. We not only answer the Christians' objection, the non-Christians' objections, we have evidences for Christianity. There's nothing like this. So the guy says, you don't have enough evidence. I'm sorry. You want to play that game? You're going to lose. I'm just telling you, you're going to lose. Well, maybe I can expand the laws of nature. Wonderful. Go practice on the feeding of the 4,000, the 5,000, because you're not going to make it on the resurrection. Well, where's the label in the collar? And that is a good objection. And that's what I'm going to talk about for the next lecture.
We're not going to go into the second lecture, obviously, this morning. It gets better. I understand how complicated and how disjointed that seemed, but he will build as we go through this. He'll build on that. That's a good foundation for.
Does he have any notes on his website that would go over that, or is there a way that we could get printed out the points that he had? Because I can't. That he showed.
I have a workbook.
Or is it in one of his books?
Well, it's spread all over his stuff, but I have a workbook for this series that I can make available to you. When I downloaded the series from Credo House, this was part of it. It doesn't have a lot of detail. It's very loose, but I can send you a PDF of that so you can have it. Now let me talk a little bit about what he went through. When I started my PhD studies, because my degree is in apologetics and philosophy, I had to learn all this philosophy stuff that I didn't want to know. And a priori and I posteriori, I still can't say it, and I never will be able to say it. I couldn't say it in my exams years ago. I had to learn all about those and how they're used. And he is approaching this topic, and he talks about it, the debate kind of format. That's big time in philosophical and apologetic circles, the debates where you prove your point, no, you prove your point, and the audience will decide. And so he's approaching this topic from that point, from that standpoint of the Christian being able to debate with others and defend why we believe that Jesus was raised from the dead. And so he begins with this long, involved discussion of people that reject or object to what's being taught or being said. Now, he talked a little bit about the three different kinds of objection categories: evidence, laws of nature. I don't completely understand his point on how the rule that you could make up for the resurrection doesn't fit in the laws of nature. I don't quite understand how he's using that. And the final one was the epistemic. Epistemology is the study or the theory of knowledge. So he framed it as, how do you know? How do I know that Jesus was raised from the dead? That's an epistemic question, an epistemology question. We don't get into epistemology very much overtly, but we rely on what's been determined epistemologically. Hey, I got it. Because that deals with the regard to the methods, the validity, and scope of things that we say. And so during the following lectures, he will discuss those things of how we know that when Matthew records Jesus coming out of the grave, how do we know that's a legitimate statement? Because remember, he's talking in this debate format where the other side rejects Scripture. A lot of what he'll do in this course is show you why you don't have to reject Scripture as good, authoritative, historical record. And he makes some really good illustrations in the next lecture and in the one following about the historical nature of Scripture. You've heard us talk about J. Warner Wallace and the Cold Case Christian. He does the exact same thing. As a J. Warner Wallace as a homicide investigator, a cold case homicide investigator, he would look at eyewitness statements and determine their veracity on certain things, on certain, what's their relationship to the event? How long after was the statement given, and so forth. And then he turns around and he uses that same criteria for Scripture and determines that Scripture can be used in exactly the same way as a historical record. So when Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John write the Gospels, they're providing a historical record that is legitimate and is authenticated and is not automatically thrown out just because it's the Word of God. And so that's the epistemological question. What else do I need to talk about here? I really appreciated that he put up on the screen two claims. Jesus, the only founder of a major world religion who ever claimed to be God. And Jesus, the only founder of a major world religion who's believed to have been raised from the dead in such a way as to not die again. Of course, that's what we're talking about, the resurrection. And how do we prove it without just quoting verses? When as a detective, when I'd present a case to the prosecutor to be prosecuted, I would have to provide statements, but then I would have to authenticate the statements. I'd have to validate. I'd have to validate every piece of evidence I submitted. And that's exactly what this process is. We have more evidence than most Christians know about, and we have more evidence than we need. I'm fascinated by that reality. And I'm frustrated that we have more evidence than we know about. What's that tell you? Yeah. The church, the church, not our church, but the church, isn't doing a good job of teaching this stuff because it is heady, it is hard, and it requires there is some smoke coming out your brain, out your ears this morning. I recognize that. I've watched this now 5 or 6 times, but I think it's good for us to go through because ultimately, at the end of it, we will see how we can defend with some legitimacy the resurrection of Jesus. And then the final question that he asked today, what is there in the resurrection to link it to the hand of God? How is this not just something that happened, but that it is something that happened at the hand of God? And I think the questions get answered. Next week, Lord willing, as we go into I priori objections part 2, he will go through what he talked about already, but he'll deal with some specific objections as well. Any questions, comments? I warned you this one was a little bit tough to understand. And it is. I grant you that. I have a little bit of an advantage in that I've had those lessons in classes before, but it is complex stuff. But there's enough here for you to gain that I think it's worthwhile going through it. No questions? Father, thank you for allowing us to spend some time with you. Spending some time listening to Dr. Habermas, and even though it's a complex and often confusing topic and lecture series, that the other side of it, we understand ways to defend the resurrection of Jesus. Central to our faith. If your Son was not executed on our behalf, we're not saved. If your Son wasn't raised from the dead, we don't have eternal life. So it is central to what we believe, central to what you've taught us. And so we need to understand it. We need to understand it a little better, and we need to be able to defend it because you've left us here in this world to talk about you and talk about your Son. Give us a great time in the service to follow where you might be honored and glorified as we worship you in fellowship and in music and in the study of your word. And then bring us back again together tonight, this evening, as we celebrate with Charis Fellowship churches all over North America. Thank you, Father, for the blessings you give us. We love you in Jesus' name.
Thank you for watching or listening to this teaching on demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. Please consider sending us an email at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com to let us know how this teaching may have helped you. Please also consider joining us in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church, located at 10251 Metro Parkway, Suite 116, Fort Myers, Florida, just south of the intersection of Metro and Colonial Boulevard. Sunday school begins at 9 and worship service at 10 a.m. We look forward to seeing you in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church.